They decided they didn't want to use those stories. They decided they were going to go do their own thing, and so I decided, fine. But basically, I'm not going to try to... They weren't that keen to have me involved anyway, but at the same time I said, I'm not going to... If I get in there, I'm just going to cause trouble, because they're not going to do what I want them to do. So, and I don't have the control to do that anymore, and all I would do is muck everything up. It was designed to be a film, like mythology, of this is what we stand for. You're probably scared. You don't know what's going to happen. And here's a little idea of some of the things you should pay attention to. Friendships, honesty, trust, and doing the right thing, living on the light side, avoiding the dark side.
You were planning on developing Star Wars Episode 7 before you sold Lucasfilm. Can you divulge any of the details you were working on?
The ones that I sold to Disney and everything, they came up to the decision that they didn't really want to do those, so they made up their own.
George Lucas, the visionary who created Star Wars and revolutionized cinema, has reportedly reached his breaking point. After attending a private screening of the upcoming Rey movie, sources claim Lucas erupted in frustration over what has become of his beloved galaxy far, far away. This isn't just another behind-the-scenes drama. This is the man who gave birth to one of the most iconic franchises in history, now watching it unravel under Disney's control. Asterisk, asterisk. Since taking the reins of Lucasfilm in 2012, Kathleen Kennedy has been at the helm of Disney's Star Wars saga. However, many fans and industry insiders believe Kennedy's leadership is a major factor in the franchise's decline. From constant writer shakeups to disappointing box office results, the Star Wars universe seems to be spiraling into confusion and disarray. With the Rey movie languishing in development hell and yet another new writer being brought on board, it seems even George Lucas can't stay silent any longer. What happened during that screening? Why has Star Wars strayed so far from its original vision? And with Kathleen Kennedy still at the wheel, can the franchise ever find its way back to greatness? Let's explore the story behind the rise and fall of a galaxy far, far away.
What happens now, and it happens in streaming probably more than features, but features the same thing. Nobody knows what to do. The stories they're telling are just old movies. People have a tendency to overdo it. They abuse it. But everybody went out and made spaceship movies, and they were all horrible, and they all lost tons of money. Whenever there's a new tool, everybody goes crazy, and they forget the fact that there's actually a story, and that's the point. Let's not do anything. So you gotta remember, Star Wars came from nowhere. Now, if you do anything that's not a sequel, or not a TV series, or it doesn't look like one, they won't do it. They say, we want something that we know.
So that's the downside of Star Wars.
That's the downside of Star Wars, and it really shows an enormous lack of imagination.
To understand why George Lucas erupted after the Rey movie screening, look no further than the disarray that the film has become. What was intended to be a fresh chapter in the Star Wars saga has devolved into a chaotic mess of failed leadership, creative clashes, and endless rewrites. This situation would frustrate any creator, especially the man who gave birth to the Star Wars universe. When the new Jedi Order project was announced at Star Wars Celebration in London in 2023, Disney hoped to tap into nostalgia by bringing Daisy Ridley back as Rey. However, instead of excitement, the announcement was met with skepticism. Ridley's character had already been controversial, especially after the rise of Skywalker revealed Rey's lineage as a Palpatine, a plot twist many saw as a desperate attempt to address the backlash from The Last Jedi. Now, Disney was doubling down on Rey, positioning her as the leader of a new Jedi Order 15 years after the events of the sequel trilogy. For many fans, this felt like the franchise was digging itself into a deeper hole rather than moving forward. The real chaos, though, unfolded behind the scenes. The Rey movie has gone through a revolving door of writers, each one either fired or leaving due to creative differences, a phrase that has become synonymous with Kathleen Kennedy's leadership at Lucasfilm. This pattern of instability likely pushed Lucas to his breaking point. It all started with Damon Lindelof, the mind behind Watchmen and Lost. Lindelof, known for his complex storytelling, initially gave fans hope, but his time on the project was short-lived. After being pushed out, Lindelof joked that participating in the writer's strike was more enjoyable than working on Star Wars, a clear shot at the chaotic environment under Kennedy. If a writer of Lindelof's caliber couldn't navigate Lucasfilm's demands, the issues were clearly much deeper. Next came Stephen Knight, the creator of Peaky Blinders, known for his gritty, character-driven narratives. Knight seemed like a promising choice, but by October 2024, he was out, another victim of Lucasfilm's inability to maintain a consistent creative vision. Simon Kinberg, a seasoned writer with ties to Star Wars through Rebels and blockbuster experience from X-Men Days of Future Past, was brought on next. Kinberg was rumored to be working closely with Kathleen Kennedy on the script, but like his predecessors, his involvement quietly fizzled out, signaling that the project was in serious trouble. In a last-ditch effort, Lucasfilm brought in George Nolfi, known for his work on Ocean's 12, The Bourne Ultimatum, and The Adjustment Bureau. While Nolfi is an accomplished writer, his hiring raises serious concerns. He has made it clear that he plans to explore political themes in the movie, similar to the subtle commentary George Lucas included in his original trilogy. But fans are skeptical. Under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, Star Wars has been criticized for prioritizing modern political agendas over strong storytelling, and Nolfi's involvement suggests the film may be heading further down that path, focusing more on messages than crafting a compelling narrative. What's most infuriating is that each of these writers brought a unique perspective, yet none could survive the chaotic environment at Lucasfilm. Constant rewrites and shifting creative direction have left the film in limbo, with no clear vision guiding it forward. For George Lucas, who built Star Wars on a cohesive and solid story, witnessing this level of dysfunction must have been unbearable. It's not just the writing that likely set Lucas off. The choice of director has also stirred controversy. Charmaine Oid-Chinoy, an award-winning documentary filmmaker, is making her narrative feature debut with this Star Wars film. While her work in human rights documentaries is highly respected, directing a massive, effects-driven blockbuster is an entirely different challenge. Fans question whether she has the experience to handle a project of this scale, and many believe her hiring is more about meeting diversity and inclusion goals than selecting the best person for the job. For Lucas, seeing Star Wars used as a platform for corporate messaging rather than focusing on strong storytelling would be a bitter pill to swallow. Even Daisy Ridley seems disconnected from the project. In interviews, she's expressed polite enthusiasm but admitted she hasn't read the latest script and revealed that the Rey movie isn't even her next project. Her vague, non-committal responses reflect a broader lack of confidence in the film's future, something Lucas likely shares after seeing the direction his franchise has taken. With the revolving door of writers, the inexperienced director, and the lack of creative focus, it's easy to understand why George Lucas erupted. Watching the franchise he built from the ground up descend into this kind of disorder would push any creator to their breaking point.
Marketing for the Rey movie that nobody asked for has been underway. The director for the movie came out and said, "It's about time we've had a woman come forward to shape the story of Star Wars." And this is so wrong on so many levels. The most obvious is that Kathleen Kennedy has been president of Lucasfilm for going on 12 years now. Secondly, there's been a female director, Deborah Chow. She directed the entirety of the Star Wars Kenobi series.
Star Wars is George Lucas. George Lucas created Star Wars. He is the godfather. He is the creator. What he says is Star Wars. And for them to completely just buy that and then throw it out and say, "No, George, you're wrong. Even though this is what you created, this universe, this world, these characters wouldn't exist without you." Well, guess what? We're throwing that away and it doesn't matter anymore. That, I think, is it. That's it. That just proves that Disney has, no respect for the fans, no respect for the stories, no respect for the creator.
I disliked the business of Hollywood intensely. When I had that choice of Star Wars being a success, I said, I'm going to try to make a go for it. And so I invested in the next movie and borrowed money from a bank and everything. I had everything at stake. I did it primarily because I didn't want the studios to tell me what to do. I didn't want them coming and commenting on my work.
When George Lucas reportedly sat down to watch the screening of the new Rey movie, it's easy to imagine his frustration reaching a boiling point. The man who built Star Wars from the ground up, with a focus on mythological storytelling, universal themes, and groundbreaking innovation, was now witnessing his beloved creation struggle under the weight of corporate mismanagement, forced political messaging, and a complete lack of narrative direction. For Lucas, this wasn't just about a bad film. It was about watching the very soul of Star Wars being stripped away. Lucas has always been clear about his vision for Star Wars. When he first created the saga, he crafted a timeless story rooted in the classic hero's journey, inspired by mythological archetypes and universal themes of good versus evil. While political undertones were always present, such as the fall of democracy and the rise of authoritarianism, they were subtle, woven seamlessly into the fabric of the story without overshadowing the characters or the emotional journey of the audience. Lucas's political commentary never felt like a lecture. It served as a backdrop, enhancing the story rather than becoming the focal point. Now, contrast that with what Lucas likely saw in the Rey movie. George Nolfi, the latest in a long line of writers attached to the project, has made it clear that he intends to lean heavily into the political themes of the franchise. In interviews, Nolfi explained that he would draw inspiration from Lucasfilms, particularly in exploring the fall of democracies and the rise of authoritarian regimes. While that may sound faithful to the spirit of the originals on the surface, there's a key difference in approach. Nolfi's comments suggest a much heavier and more overt focus on politics, a direction that many fans and likely Lucas himself feel has been overemphasized in recent Star Wars projects. For Lucas, storytelling was always the heart of Star Wars. It was about transporting audiences to another world, allowing them to connect with characters like Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, and Han Solo on deeply personal levels. Politics were never front and center. They were part of the backdrop, subtle enough to add depth without detracting from the adventure. Lucas understood that Star Wars succeeded because it resonated emotionally, not because it pushed an agenda. Seeing the new Rey movie shift further away from that core principle would have been infuriating, especially knowing that his original blueprint had been abandoned in favor of messaging that alienates rather than unites fans. Another major point of contention likely stems from the ongoing focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) initiatives under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. While Lucas has always supported diverse storytelling, Star Wars was groundbreaking in many ways with strong female leads like Leia and diverse characters like Lando Calrissian. He never allowed representation to overshadow storytelling. Kennedy's Star Wars era, however, has been criticized for doing just that. Characters often feel forced, stories hollow, and the heart of what made Star Wars special seems to be missing. For Lucas, seeing his franchise reduced to a tool for corporate messaging rather than a platform for timeless storytelling would have been a bitter pill to swallow. Adding to Lucas's frustration is the repetitive nature of the sequel trilogy's villains. The First Order felt like a recycled version of the Galactic Empire, offering nothing new or original. Now, with the Rey movie promising to explore political themes once again, it risks rehashing old ideas without bringing fresh perspectives to the table. Lucas prided himself on innovation and creativity, always pushing boundaries and exploring new ideas. Watching the franchise stagnate under Disney's control, relying on the same tired plots and political themes, would have been deeply disappointing for him. It's also impossible to ignore the chaotic production history of the Rey movie. Lucas built Star Wars with a clear, cohesive vision, one that, while it evolved over time, always maintained its core integrity. The Rey film, on the other hand, has been a revolving door of writers and directors, each bringing a different vision that ultimately goes nowhere. 4 writers, Damon Lindelof, Justin Britt Gibson, Stephen Knight, and Simon Kinberg, have come and gone, all unable to find common ground with Lucasfilm's leadership. For Lucas, who maintained tight creative control over his films, this level of disorganization and lack of direction would have been maddening. In the end, the direction Star Wars has taken under Kathleen Kennedy and Disney's leadership is likely something George Lucas could never have imagined, much less embraced. The saga he built with passion and purpose now finds itself caught in a cycle of disarray, political overtones, and unfulfilled potential. For Lucas, watching this unfold must have been as heartbreaking as it was frustrating.
And working with Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy and the team over there in breathing life to characters that everyone loves and has fallen in love with, and finding new characters that the next generation of moviegoers will fall in love with. I've had conversations with J.J. Abrams. I've had conversations with George Lucas, and then of course Dave Filoni, who's a big part of the Star Wars universe now. We speak very often, and Kathy Kennedy and Carrie Beck and Simon Emanuel. I mean, I think the team is really taking time to make sure that we do justice to telling the story of Daisy, and I think that she stands for something. We've seen this wonderful journey she went on in episode 7, 8, and 9, and now it's like on to the next adventure. I am a storyteller and an activist, and my body of work over the last 20 years has been guided by my activism, and every single piece of work that I've ever created has a piece of activism in it. It could be very overt or it could be covert, but it is there.
And we're in 2024 now, and I think it's about time that we had a woman come forward to shape the story in a galaxy far, far away.
Are you insane? Rey Palpatine is not the heart of Star Wars. There was only 2 people you could argue are the heart of Star Wars. That's Anakin Skywalker or his son, Luke Skywalker.
It is hilarious. So the director right here of the next Star Wars movie, her goal is going to be make the men feel uncomfortable. Now there were a lot of people say, "Oh, she's talking about directing documentary. She won't do it in Star Wars." Bro, she's an activist. Of course she's going to do it in Star Wars.
I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable. To be able to look into the eyes of a man and say, I am here, and recognize that. It should make you uncomfortable because you need to change your attitude. You will perhaps look at yourself in the mirror and not like the reflection, and then say, maybe there is something wrong with the way I think, or maybe there is something wrong with the way I am addressing this issue.
Furthermore, the choice of Charmaine Oid Chinoy as director likely added fuel to George Lucas's frustration. While Oid Chinoy is an accomplished documentary filmmaker, she has no experience directing a large-scale, effects-driven film like Star Wars. Her appointment feels more like a decision driven by corporate diversity goals than a focus on storytelling expertise. For Lucas, who painstakingly crafted the original trilogy with visionary directors, writers, and artists, seeing such an important role handed to someone with no experience in the genre would have felt like a disservice to the franchise's legacy. George Lucas's frustration after the Rey movie screening is rooted in years of mismanagement at Lucasfilm. Since Kathleen Kennedy took over, the studio has seen a constant shuffle of projects and creators. High-profile directors like Gareth Edwards, *Rogue One*, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, *Solo*, and Colin Trevorrow, *Episode 9*, were all removed mid-production or left due to creative clashes. Damon Lindelof, initially tasked with writing the Rey film, walked away, later hinting that the environment at Lucasfilm was creatively stifling. The Rey movie, announced with great fanfare in 2023, has yet to enter production despite multiple rewrites and new writers like George Nolfi stepping in. The project remains stalled. Meanwhile, The Mandalorian and Rogue Squadron are the only confirmed projects, with a release date set for May 2026, leaving a significant gap since the rise of Skywalker in 2019. For Lucas, watching a franchise that once thrived on bold ideas now tangled in endless delays and creative indecision would be deeply frustrating. In 1977, George Lucas introduced Star Wars to the world with a $6 million budget, transforming it into a multi-billion-dollar cultural phenomenon. His focus was on innovative storytelling, pushing the boundaries of visual effects, and creating memorable characters that resonated with audiences for generations. The success of the original trilogy wasn't just about spectacle. It was about heart, mythology, and universal themes. Since 2012, under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, Star Wars has lost much of that creative spark. Films like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi brought in big numbers but left the fanbase divided. Solo struggled at the box office, and The Rise of Skywalker failed to recapture the franchise's magic. Merchandise sales have also nosedived, with only original trilogy characters like Luke, Leia, and Vader maintaining strong sales. New characters like Rey have failed to resonate in the same way. For Lucas, who built Star Wars on strong storytelling foundations, seeing the franchise drift in this direction would be difficult to accept. Kathleen Kennedy's leadership has been marked by a strong emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) in hiring decisions. While promoting diverse voices is important, many fans feel that these choices have overshadowed the focus on storytelling. Directors like Charmaine Oid-Chinoy, an award-winning documentary filmmaker with no blockbuster experience, have been handed major projects like the Rey film. This has led to concerns about whether Lucasfilm is prioritizing messaging over talent suited for large-scale, narrative-driven films. George Lucas always integrated diversity into his films without making it the centerpiece of the story. Strong female characters like Leia and culturally diverse figures like Lando Calrissian were essential parts of Star Wars, but they were never used as mere checkboxes. They were fully realized, compelling characters. The shift towards overt political messaging and the emphasis on DEI hires with limited experience likely added to Lucas's frustration as it steers the franchise away from the storytelling-first approach he championed.
The Star Wars Rey movie is back in the news again, and apparently the director is not listening to fans. This goes without saying because the only way you end up with another Rey movie is if you're not listening to any feedback. But I sincerely doubt that this director is a Star Wars fan based on how she describes this upcoming film.
At the heart of it is Rey Skywalker.
This character that was never very popular. She says that the most interesting story is that Rey is a female Jedi.
Want, fingers crossed, that it's going to be good, right?
I just have hope that it's a good project. It just is, it's a lot of pressure to go back to a character that was so attacked.
Or bass-ackwards. It's just ridiculous. It really is. But yeah, has seen several high-profile writers fall into the trash compactor. Ah, so punny.
Dark hole of toxicity because this fucking idea is horrible. Okay, so this is me being positive. The idea of a solo Rey movie that's just the one-off that kind of connects to the sequel trilogy was always a stupid idea.
In this video because I really don't understand the constant obsession with whether it's a man or a woman behind the camera or the story. I really don't get it. Let's just tell a good story. This constant narrative about, you know, is this story about a woman? Is this story about a man? I simply don't care.
The Rey Skywalker sequel and George Lucas discussions. Now, they are very much pushing Rey Skywalker. If you listen to this interview time after time, every time it's Rey Skywalker. They like, that is the new name. That is what they're going to call her no matter what. The name that she gave herself, the name that she chose to have, right? They're not going to dead name her as Rey Palpatine.
She was born with the name Palpatine, but now she identifies with the name Skywalker.
Now, with that being said, let's state the obvious. This is not a personal attack on Shireen Abed Achoy, the director, right? She's done some amazing work highlighting some atrocities taking place around the world, and that's fine. But when I go see a movie, right, when I go see a Star Wars movie, it's all about escapism, not about highlighting issues that you deemed important by your own personal biases.
Disney's $4 billion acquisition of Lucasfilm in 2012 was supposed to be a surefire investment, but the results paint a different picture. Beyond the films, Disney has poured billions into theme parks, streaming content for Disney Plus, and merchandising, but the returns have been underwhelming. Shows like The Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi have struggled to maintain consistent viewership, with Star Wars content on Disney Plus lagging behind other streaming giants like Netflix in terms of engagement. Merchandising, once the crown jewel of the Star Wars empire, has seen a sharp decline. While classic characters from Lucas's original trilogy still perform well, particularly in Lego sets, newer characters like Rey have failed to generate the same level of enthusiasm. For George Lucas, whose vision extended beyond just films to create a lasting, multi-generational brand, this decline in both cultural and financial relevance represents a fundamental failure in how Disney has managed his creation. The Rey movie isn't just another troubled project. It's a symbol of everything that has gone wrong with Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. George Lucas's explosive reaction after seeing the film highlights the deep disconnect between his original vision and the current state of the franchise. Years of creative missteps, financial blunders, and an overemphasis on political messaging have left Star Wars struggling to find its identity. The big question now is whether Disney will finally make the necessary changes to save Star Wars. Should Kathleen Kennedy step down to allow new leadership to guide the franchise back to its roots? Can Star Wars recapture the magic that made it a cultural phenomenon in the first place? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe there's still hope for Star Wars, or has it drifted too far from George Lucas's original vision to be saved?